All right. As everyone is joining and getting settled in, hopefully grabbing something to eat, I think we should go ahead and get started. So, allow me to introduce myself. But first off, welcome to our first webinar as our new branded company, hireEZ's Outbound Recruiter Playbook. So, allow me to introduce myself. I am Shannon Pritchett. Some of you might know me from my previous role with Career Crossroads, or even before then, leading SourceCon, or I might have taught your AIRS class as a trainer back in the day. But I am now leading marketing and community over hireEZ. One of the topics I've always been super passionate about is not only community, but growth, and also, of course, sourcing. So I'm super excited about today's message, which is how to become a better outbound recruiter. So this is one of those weird, awkward webinar formats where everyone's muted and you can't really ask questions, but we do have a chat option that you're welcome to use. And then I'll open it for questions at the end because my team is here to help with that. So I don't have too much information to share. My goal is not to use the entire hour, but I do want to get some of the main points across of how we can all become better outbound recruiters, which is just so exciting to talk about. So here's what I'm going to cover in today's webinar. First, how the market has radically changed. Now, this shouldn't be news to anyone, right? But I'm going to tell you why this is important to you. Next, why do we create this new category of outbound recruiting? How does that benefit you? Why is adopting outbound recruiting so urgent, right? And what is outbound recruiting? We talk a lot about it. It's about time we lay the definition behind it. Also, what are the benefits for it? How to get started? And then some really cool metrics that we have within our own system. And at the end, we'll open it up for some questions and answers. So let's go ahead and get started. So I've been in this space for a while. I actually started as a recruiter. I started as a very poor recruiter, I might add. I remember, if anyone has been recruiting for longer than 15 years, you've really seen this industry change and advance. And I remember we used to say, how do people recruit before the internet? And now people are probably saying, how do people recruit without technology? Well, I was in that wave. Don't want to date myself, but I've seen a couple different economies. And I think the first major shift that I noticed when I first started recruiting was the economic crash and the recession that occurred around 2008 and 2009 with the housing market. And that had a huge impact on jobs. So back then, if you were recruiting, you probably actually weren't, right? You might have had the job title as a recruiter, but you probably were doing something else. Case in point, I was working for T-Mobile at the time. Love that job. I was in charge of building a call center, right? Staffing a call center. Lots of moving parts when you do call center, high volume recruiters. So my high volume recruiters on this call, high fives, right? I feel you. And all of a sudden, all of my positions went away, which was unheard of. I usually had anywhere from 30 to 90 open positions at one time, right? Because, by the way, 90, that could be maybe 75, the same job over and over again. And so for 6 months, I had to make myself useful around the call center. So I would take calls from customers and I would, look at data and trends and revamp our interview questions and try to brand the company and just do what I can to actually keep my job. It was a very scary time to be a recruiter back then. There wasn't any open positions and lots of recruiters did lose their job. But when the economy quickly rebounded, about, I'd say, 6 to 12 months later, and everyone was slowly getting back to work, all of a sudden the emergence of inbound recruiting became popular. And the market was so ready for this movement because at the time we had more people than jobs. Now, if you recall back then, and thank God that you'll see these anymore, at least I hope not. If you do, let me know the company because I want to put them on blast on LinkedIn. But I remember some of the FANG companies, as we say, those Silicon Valley tech companies, they would make candidates jump through so many funny hoops in the interview process. You would have to guess questions that really didn't have answers, like how many tennis balls fit into a bus? And, or just really weird, thought-provoking questions like that had nothing to do with the position that you're looking for. You're like, hey, man, I just want to be a janitor. Why do I have to know this? But employers could be a lot more selective, right? Because the demand was so high for jobs. Posting and praying worked back then, right? You posted a job. The biggest problem we had was, how do we quickly reject candidates, right? How do we discourage people from applying? Because our busyness was not so much on the sourcing piece of it. It was shifting through all the different applicants that were applying to our jobs. So it was a completely different process. And you also saw the emergence of assessments and other things that we use today. But inbound certainly became popular, right? Now, today, we still use a lot of those tools that came about, right, in 2006, 7, 8, and 9 in this same market, which is so crazy because nowadays, right, we can no longer post and pray. That doesn't work. I think you guys know that, or you wouldn't be on today's webinar, right? So my biggest observation over the past 15 years is, if the market has completely shifted and has completely changed, why haven't our processes and why haven't recruiting evolved to currently match the current state of the economy, right? We are in a candidate-driven market, which means candidates control the outcome. We can't wait for them to apply. Why? Because they have millions of other opportunities that await for them. I just had a call with someone. I kind of explained my take on the Great Resignation. I was like, yeah, a lot, the pandemic put a lot of perspective into things for us, and candidates, were able to make better choices with companies that align their interests. But now the Great Resignation to me really means it's much easier to quit your job, right? You can quit your job and probably go somewhere else and make anywhere from 10, 30, 40% more. My favorite story that I've seen during this pandemic is I have a friend who, works for this small tech company, and he had a cloud engineer that worked for him. And he said this guy was mediocre at best. Wasn't looking to get, any raises. He kind of did an okay job. And, he wasn't the best engineer he's seen. He was making about $125,000 as a cloud engineer, which in that small city he was in was pretty much market value. Oracle offered him a job and was paying him $250,000 with a $50,000 sign-on bonus. He's like, how do I compete against this? I didn't even have a good engineer. I had a decent engineer, and apparently he's worth 2 times what I was paying him. And so that's the kind of craziness we live in. And for those of you who are healthcare recruiters, which, yes, I was a healthcare recruiter as well, you are really feeling it right now. So why do we need to switch from inbound to outbound to stay competitive? Why is this so important? I'm going to give you the best reason that I can, is that you need to be able to control your search. Now, prior to, I would say in the 90s, we called it headhunting, right? Where you're actually going out and finding, and that term kind of evolved into sourcing and researching and all that great stuff, right? The same thing is true today, right? And the beauty about sourcing is that it's only improved and it never went away. If anything, it's gotten a little sexy over the years, and now it's going to be really sexy with this current economy. But case in point, as I was saying earlier, why are we still focusing on inbound solutions? Now, I'm going to throw LinkedIn as in, notice the ins here, right? Inbound, LinkedIn, Indeed, right? They all emerged around the same time, right? Back with the economy. And I'm going to put LinkedIn as an inbound tool. Here's why. The only active people on LinkedIn, and every recruiter knows this, right? Unless you're a content creator, sales executive, or you want to be famous off your LinkedIn stories that don't make any sense, and you probably want to pull or something in the audience. I don't know. I see a lot of that influencer stuff on LinkedIn. It just gives me a headache. I digress. All right. Candidates are only on LinkedIn when they want to switch jobs. Otherwise, there is no point for them to be on there. They don't care about your polls. They don't care about why recruiters need to change, why hiring managers need to change. LinkedIn is a consumer-based product that has been overconsumed by recruiters, right? We know this. The average person or a LinkedIn user, I guess, spends 17 minutes a month on LinkedIn. Now, I've spent 17 minutes today on LinkedIn, and I would say I'm a light user. Some of you guys who use LinkedIn Recruiter and the platform a lot more robust totally skew the statistics for those who aren't even on it. So the average person is on LinkedIn a couple seconds a day at most. I think it's only 15% is the last social media today statistic I saw of LinkedIn users actually log in on a daily basis, right? And since recruiters account for 15% of LinkedIn, there you go. The other percentage, the monthly average login rate is like 40%. So people really aren't even using LinkedIn, yet these are our two main tools that recruiters are using today to find candidates. That is a problem because what worked back then and worked so well doesn't work now. Now, let me continue to repeat that, right? Inbound recruiting doesn't work as it used to. So should you stop doing inbound recruiting? No. Leave that for the employer branding people, right? Actually, we found that when people combine outbound strategies with a strong employer brand, which to me is a great representation of inbound recruiting, your outbound recruiting message and delivery and success rate is much more higher. But I don't think recruiters should have to focus on inbound recruiting unless you work for a small company and you're running the whole desk. All right. I always think there needs to be some kind of employer branding that does need to be associated with it, right? The two actually work really well together. But when you look at inbound recruiting to actually fill positions, it's not going to work like it did back then. The solution nowadays, obviously, is going to be outbound recruiting, right? And outbound recruiting is going to be so pertinent for you to fill your positions. Now, let's take LinkedIn, right? And I'm going to keep picking on them because it's just, the easiest one I could think of. And I like the whole inbound LinkedIn message here. LinkedIn, when they first came about, this was our first treasure trove, our first online repository of free resumes, right? Before we were spending a fortune on job boards. That was really our only, unless you were a website hacker or a cyber sleuther and you were AIR certified, you probably weren't technically advanced to hack websites, manipulate URLs to find candidate information. So you had to rely on job boards. All of a sudden, LinkedIn comes available and everyone's resume is posted free on LinkedIn for you to see. It changed the game completely, right? I was addicted like it was my crack. However, as more and more recruiters got on there and we started purchasing more and more licenses, I noticed the space was getting a lot more overcrowded. However, it continued to work and it continued to fill positions and it was really easy to use. Now, when I say really easy to use, I want to note that there's a big difference between a product that makes recruiters' jobs easier and a product that makes recruiters lazier. And so we continued to invest more and more and more in LinkedIn. Now, this became a problem because companies eventually said, hey, why am I spending $24,000 for your LinkedIn license? Yes, I've heard of licenses being that high. That's the highest I've ever heard. I need the ROI. So now we have TA teams that are slapping these metrics around us to use the product more and more, and we're actually getting little or less or none results from it in return. I actually know tons of brilliant sourcers that use multiple tools, multiple different platforms to find candidates that have been fired from their jobs because they didn't meet their LinkedIn statistics. One of them was fired and they had the most hires on their team. And this was a large tech company we're talking about here, right? Most hires to get fired because they weren't using LinkedIn as often. Why? Because then they wouldn't hit the other metrics, right? It's a catch-22. So we all kind of got in this habit of using the same platform over and over and over again. Now, I'm one of those people that is a firm believer of, being a little bit more creative and breaking the mold, getting outside the box. And we are all creatures of habit. I know how difficult it is when we have the same routine every single day to break that. But with outbound recruiting, you do. Now, outbound recruiting is way more than just sourcing. Right? To me, it's a proactive mindset to help you expand your reach into a different talent pool. Again, I'm not just referring to people who constantly want to wait for the position to open. Now, you're probably thinking, all right, Shannon, I'm going to hang up this webinar right now because how else do I recruit if I don't have an open position? That is the hardest part. And if you're a TA leader and you're listening to this webinar, I want to challenge you to create brand new metrics for your team. Recruiters cannot get the job done today when they are constantly being reactive to the new open positions, right? So do as what you will, but have you ever tried to measure a recruiter on being a little bit more proactive? Give them more freedom and flexibility to actually build that new pipeline. That is so important when it comes to being proactive, right? If they don't, then they have to rely on inbound strategies. And I'm here to tell you that just doesn't work. So measure recruiters to become more proactive, give them the freedom, give them the creativity to, again, expand that pipeline and actually build pipelines that will work once those positions become available. It's one of those things of taking 2 steps back and 1 giant leap forward is exactly what you're doing, right? Taking a step back, take a bunch more forward. All right, also going beyond typical sourcing to finding and engaging potential candidates. When I used to be a sourcer, that's all we did was source. Source, right? We were the redheaded stepchildren in the basement that weren't allowed to talk to candidates because how dare we? We are awkward and weird people, right? And boy, do we love being awkward and weird. But engagement is such an important part of sourcing and outbound recruiting now today, right? Anyone can find a candidate. That's not hard. If you struggle with actually finding a person, oh boy, we have a bigger deal. I need to hold your hand and we'll just have a kumbaya meeting. But finding the right talent and finding the right person and then engaging them is the challenge today. And so I think recruiters more than ever are being ghosted by candidates. Man, 2008, the term ghosting didn't exist, right? It was what we know as a ghost. Now it's so common for recruiters not to, get a response or to actually get a response. Then that person doesn't show up for their interview or even the first day on the job, right? It's becoming a normal part of rejection that unfortunately we have to deal with every single day. So how can we improve this, right? So I'm going to also challenge the TA leaders on this team to say, have you ever tried engagement metrics, right? Slap some metrics around response rate. I surveyed 150 TA leaders back in a previous position, heads of TA. These were very large companies. And I asked them, who is actually measuring response rate and who is actually tracking response rate? Nobody was measuring response rate, and that includes in-mails and emails. And what was more disturbing was there was only 1 or 2 that actually had the ability to go in there and see the response rate. And if you don't know, and this is the hardest part about recruiting is nowadays, is engagement. If you don't know how well your messages are performing, then how are you going to improve, right? It's a huge part about outbound recruiting. It's not just finding, it's also engaging. So I want to challenge you to expand your reach and try those metrics as well. Next, using a data-driven approach with AI. I love AI. I remember when AI was first coming onto the scenes and we had this whole, oh my God, they're going to replace us all. And I'm still seeing people post on Twitter, oh, do people know that AI is still going to replace sourcers? Oh my God, please. It's not happening, right? January 3rd, I noticed on LinkedIn, mind you, that there were 14,000 recruiter jobs open on LinkedIn alone. That same day, 16,000 were posted on Indeed. That's insane. I've never seen a demand for recruiters like this. I love it, actually. I love seeing job openings for recruiters, right? That means we're wanted. That means we're valued. That means we need to ask for more money, right? Lead the revolt. But that number's only gone up. So that tells us we're in a demand. But why do we have more recruiter openings, right? Well, our job has gotten harder. We need more recruiters to get the job done. So it's going to be harder and harder to hire recruiters. And there's always been a lack of education when it comes to recruiting. Now, I'm not talking about Shally Sturkel's course or an AIRS training course or any of the other wonderful training courses that are out there. I'm actually talking about education that happens in school, right? You don't see a lot of colleges offer recruiting courses as you typically would maybe a marketing profession or even a medical degree, et cetera, right? You know what I mean? You guys are recruiters. No one went to college to be a recruiter. And so you're not going to see an influx of recruiters into the market that came primed and ready from colleges. So until we can actually train recruiters to get up to speed, what can we do to make our jobs easy? And the answer is two parts. One, artificial intelligence, right? So how can we use AI to find things that we typically wouldn't find and also make our jobs more faster and more efficient? Second part is using data. I've always been a big data nerd. I've always been a big component of using data to make better decisions. And so you need to make sure that you have a product and all the data you need to know exactly where to go. I look at data throughout the entire day. I don't make a decision without using data. Why? Because I don't want to make a bad investment and I don't want to make a bad decision. Data tells me exactly where I need to be more successful. It will save you time. It will make you more efficient. And it will help you make the right decisions. That's why it's very important to use for outbound recruiting as well. But I digress. Take a deep breath. I reiterate, the most important part is the shift from passive to proactive, where recruiters are in control, cradle to grave of the entire process. At hireEZ, we like to, basically say we want jobs to be able to find people. Now, who controls the jobs? Recruiters, right? Jobs need to find people in this kind of economy. It's no longer where people need to find jobs, right? Everyone's wanted. Recruiters are in demand. Outbound recruiting is going to be here to stay for a long time. Now, if you're still relying on inbound tactics, you're not going to be as competitive as somebody who has excelled in outbound recruiting. And there doesn't need to be a lot of training around outbound recruiting, right? It's just more of giving yourself the right tools and the technology to do the job easier for you. I look at a product like our own, right? And I look at where I was 15 years ago. And, the best sourcers, I mentioned this already, were very tech savvy and ahead of their time. And we had our own custom search engines that we built from scratch. And we were on all these different message boards and sites and sharing information with one another. And it was just beautiful. Nowadays, right, you can simply upload a resume into a system and have access to 800 million candidates like that. The worst recruiter becomes the best recruiter with the best technology. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone is a good recruiter because they use technology. There are certainly a lot of better skill sets that recruiters need to have. But my point is, AI is so advanced now where anyone can be connected to the right talent to fill your positions. So I really love this quote from my good friend, Chris Russell, right? If you haven't checked out Rec Tech Media, he has an amazing newsletter, an amazing podcast. And he's one of the, I hate to use the word thought leaders, but he's just a really smart dude. And he says, it's about being proactive versus reactive. So key there. In a time when workers have more choice than they know what to do with, the companies that win talent are the ones who take the initiative. In this case, outbound recruiting is equivalent to an outbound sales tactic, right? As in, you don't sit there and wait for the opportunities to come to you. You take hold and you go out there and bring them in yourself. That's what makes a good outbound recruiter. All right. So I've been talking about the benefits over and over and over again, right? So there's not much I haven't hit on this slide. Boosting productivity is so important, right? If you're down a couple of recruiters, make sure you have the right technology for you to be able to do the job of more than one. But it also reduces cost, right? Advertising your positions, especially on platforms like LinkedIn, it's freaking expensive. I know. We advertise our positions there, right? It's very, very expensive to do. And, and like I said, leave that to the employer branding team. Let them go ahead and do that. You focus on your positions. But to me, these are two entirely separate budgets, right? That need to be allocated towards, the marketing team and also then the recruiting team, right? And accelerate your time to hire. That's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to bring you the right talent that will be at your company, that will actually stay at your company in a shorter amount of time. We talk about a lot about hiring, but we don't talk a lot about retention. And that's a huge part of this as well. It's not only, and this is so hard for recruiters to do, because when we talk to somebody on the phone and we get to know them from looking at their resumes for a couple minutes, it's not like we have that crystal ball that says, this guy is going to be a top performer. He's going to stay at our company for 5 years. No, because we didn't hire the person, we didn't train the person, we didn't manage the person, right? But by making sure that your workflow is consistent, that is going to help you with retention. Recruiters are the gatekeepers, right? But we also should be the decision makers on top of that. What I mean by that is working with the hiring managers to identify ones that might not be the best fit now, but the best fit in the future. And the best person to determine that, in my opinion, is always going to be recruiters, because you see these positions open time and time again. Can I get an amen? I'm the only one talking, but yes, that's what's going on in my head. All right. Also, candidate experience plays a big role in this. You need to make sure that you have enough time to be able to go back to do things that have taken a backseat over the years. Yes, I'm talking about the interpersonal part of our job. One of the biggest time-consuming tasks is emails. I'm so glad I lived in a spammy or recruited in a spammy generation where we used templated messages across job boards that actually worked. That stuff doesn't work anymore, right? If you misspelled a candidate's name back in 2008, that candidate didn't care because you were the employer. Nowadays, you get blasted on Twitter and LinkedIn, and then you go to a mediocre podcast and have people say hate things on you, right? That happens in today's economy, right? We can't afford to misspell someone's name. We can't afford to contact somebody who's not actually a fit in the position. We need more time to look at profiles. We need AI to help us look at these profiles. We need more time to write messages, to send messages, set up drip campaigns so that you can constantly stay in contact with these candidates. We're seeing data that shows that candidates typically respond now between 3 and 5 messages. But what if you only have time for one? You're missing out, right? And of course, the whole interpersonal part, being the career coach, being the career advisor, being the candidate champion along the process. That stuff that's the stuff that we all want to do, but we just don't necessarily have time to do. Sourcing needs to be shortened, right? So that we can concentrate on the candidate experience parts, which really makes us good at our jobs, right? And last piece, the biggest benefit is underrepresented talent. I felt like this took a back seat, and I'm so pissed about this during the pandemic. I felt like we were on such a roll with getting DE&I more represented, and then we all of a sudden took that back seat thanks to the pandemic. Sure, we saw the whole social injustice movement, but I didn't see a lot of I didn't see a lot of companies come out of that with beyond messages and actually taking action, right? Recruiters control the search. When recruiters control the search, they have the opportunity to bring in more underrepresented talent to the positions that they are trying to fill. That is so hard with an inbound tactic, right? How are you going to track DE&I employees with a job description when every single executive at your company is a white male? Have we heard the statistics? Do you know that if a underrepresented talent or a female, right? I wouldn't call women the minority. So I think we're actually the majority, but we are diverse in the fact that we still get paid 82 cents on the dollar. And if there's a female in the final 4 slates of the interview process, right? I believe this study comes from like Harvard, or there's an underrepresented talent, like maybe a Black male or a Latino woman, the odds of us actually getting the job are 0.000%. So my challenge back to you, are you presenting a slate of 75% white male, or are you adding some more diversity to give that talent a better opportunity to succeed within your organization, right? Again, we control the outcome. So how are we going to get started? All right, shift your mindset from reactive to proactive, right? That's how you get started, right? You got to be hungry. You got to be thirsty. You want to go out there and hunt and go out there and produce results, right? That's the first thing, right? Not just, oh, I'm going to wait for people to come to me. That's you. This is not your webinar. This is not your skill set. This is not for you. But wanting to make a change, wanting to be proactive, wanting to drive results, that's where you need to be. All right. Second, strategy number 1. Utilize real-time data to develop strategic sourcing strategies. Data needs to be brought in the beginning of the process, before the intake meeting, right? We are the advocates. We tell the hiring managers what the labor market looks like. If you're going to go into a meeting knowing that a purple squirrel candidate is going to come out of it, which those no longer exist, they're extinct in this economy, right? I think that are not they're extinct. There's a lot more of them. Purple squirrels, I guess, maybe have mated along the way, and now everyone's a purple squirrel because it's so hard to hire people. But my point being is that you got to do the research before you even start. I like to call this pre-search, right? Know what you're about to get into. Know what the data says. Do you guys remember writing Boolean strings? If anyone used to do that back in the day, right? And you'd have like an Excel sheet saved on your desktop with all the semantic position titles that were out there that you can possibly think of, right? So you would say like software engineer or civil engineer or product manager, whatever. I'm just going off of the slide, right? Some of those you're like, oh, that doesn't really make sense, Shannon. But the case in point being is now data tells you what you need to include in your search. And so again, go where the quantity is and quality will come from it. And so use data to let you see things that you typically won't be able to see yourself. Always start with research. That is my top recommendation. Bring research into your intake meeting. If you have a recruiter and you're a sourcer, give the recruiters all the research and all the data that they need to set the expectations up. Right? So you got to use data from the beginning, right? And the beauty about using like a product like ours is we give you data and insights throughout your whole sourcing cycle. We're constantly giving you the data so that you can be better, you can be more educated, and you can make the decisions you need to find that person a lot faster. Second, DE&I. Now, the great thing about our product is that we have, here's my sales pitch. We have more DE&I talent in our product than any other software that is out there. We are number one when it comes to diverse profiles in our site. Now, why can't you search diversity within LinkedIn? Oh, okay. It's because they tell you their results are diverse, right? Does that make any sense to you? You're going to really let LinkedIn tell us that the results are diverse? What does that even mean? Here's how LinkedIn algorithm works, right? They take those 15% of the daily users, right? And then they rank them into who's most likely going to respond to your email. That's the order you see in a LinkedIn search. It's not the best talent that you typically see at top of the search. It's the one who's most likely going to respond. Now, if you're going to be a little bit more active on LinkedIn, yeah, sure, they're going to push you up to the top too. But that's not always the case. And I don't think people really know that's how LinkedIn's algorithm actually works. They tell us that the diversity search matches the population, right? That's cool. Do we believe them? And then the algorithm spits out how likely they are to respond, which tells me that LinkedIn is a giant ocean of candidates, yet we're all sitting in Miami, Florida on the same pier, fishing in the same exact location. You need to get in that yacht and you need to go across the ocean and find somewhere else, but LinkedIn doesn't allow us to do that. So you have to have a product that's going to allow you to actually filter and find diversity talent much more faster. And companies need to make the investment into DE&I. You can't just say you want to move the needle. You got to put your money where your mouth is, right? So with DE&I, one of the things that I've seen is the searches are up on our platform by 250%. Awesome. They're up 250% in 1 year. Here's the downside. Only 10% of all searches on our website, in our platform are done with our DE&I filters. So that tells me that there's a small minority who's actually using diversity searches to find open or to find underrepresented talent for their positions. So there's still that 90% that is not taking advantage of DE&I shortcomings. So again, you have the opportunity to move that needle for your organization. And one of the best ways to do that is through outbound recruiting tactics, specifically targeting underrepresented talent. I needed to pause there. All right, strategy 3, search multiple databases at once, right? Why are we going in one platform and staying in one platform, right? We all know not everyone is on that platform. We know not everyone's on that platform today or right now or will be that month, right? Use a platform that's going to have multiple data sources at once. Okay, so back in the day, I keep referencing because I'm having fun thinking about young Shannon as a sourcer. We called this meta search engines. So here's why. In the early 2000s, we knew Google didn't have every single web page, and they still don't. We knew Yahoo didn't have every single website, and we knew Bing didn't have every single website. Same with like Yandex and DuckDuckGo, and I can go on and on and on and on with all the search engines that we used to live, breathe, and die in. So we use meta search engines to search multiple search engines at once. All right. Same works for recruiting today. Not everyone is going to be in LinkedIn. Not everyone is going to be on Facebook. I don't know who's actually using Facebook to recruit, but maybe you can use a system that can do it for you. And so why not use multiple systems with one search, right? You're going to be able to access more profiles a lot sooner. Now you're probably, getting ready to type in the chat and be like, oh, but they just scraped LinkedIn. No, we do not scrape LinkedIn, right? We use a search engine to tell us to find profiles that are publicly available on that. And then we combine it with 44 other data sources to make it a lot more enricher and a lot more powerful, right? That is how you do outbound recruiting. You look at multiple sources at once, save yourself time, save yourself resources, and get access to many more people. Almost 800 million people on our platform. That's something we're very proud of. Also, engagement is so big. All right, so personalized messages. Now, I'm going to steal a success story from one of our recruiters because this is one of the coolest stories I've ever heard. Now, I think some of you guys might have heard. I'll start with my fun outbound story. Is when the economy turned back on and I was at T-Mobile and I started hiring again. Call center representatives who made $12 an hour used to give a $500 bonus if they brought me a referral that got hired. Well, with the economy and the recession, T-Mobile couldn't afford a $500 bonus at that time. Yes, things were that tight back then. So what I did instead is I went to the CVS next to the call center and I bought a bag of Halloween candy. I sent an email to everyone with instructions. Actually, not everyone, it's just the top 10% of the call center performers. I showed them how to put advertisements on social media, so social media posts, to get their friends to be interested in the position. And I said, stop by my office, bring me a name and an email address and a phone number. And if you give me those three things, you get a piece of candy, right? That was your referral bonus. And it cost me, I don't know what, like 3 cents a piece of candy. And it's funny because in call centers, breaks are staggered. For about 3 months straight, I had a steady stream of people constantly coming in the HR offices and handing me this tiny little piece of paper with their friend's name. I had never been so ahead of my hiring process by just working the referral engine off of a piece of candy than I ever have before. It was the best response. And yes, these were now warm leads I'm constantly calling, and it worked. Flash forward to today. Here's a more modern approach. One of our recruiters was telling me that we hired an amazing sales associate that I absolutely love in our staff. She's like, do you know she wasn't interested in sales when I reached out to her? And I was like, well, what do you mean? She's like, well, I found her and she was actually wanting to quit and get into photography. And I just was like so bummed because I thought she'd be perfect for our company. She goes, so I put her name her email in a sequence. And I went and found her photography blog and I pulled a picture I really liked off of that. And I wrote an email to her and scheduled it to be delivered 3 months from the day we last spoke. And it just said, hey, I absolutely love this photo I found on your website. I hope you're doing well. Just keep up the good work. So they were encouraging them to continue with photography, but also, wanted to keep them warm. Well, the sales associate got that and wrote back immediately, hey, by the way, I love photography, but I'm really missing sales. I would love to get back into it with you guys. So, hey, when can I start? Beautiful. All she did was take a good candidate that wasn't a fit, because a lot of recruiting, right, is luck and timing. And she set the sequence. And so the timing was right for that person to become, and they've already been promoted multiple times within our organization. I thought that story was like so amazing. I was like, yes, that's what drip campaigning is made for. It's not only to spark their attention right now, but also to keep them warm, right? Build engagement within that pipeline, right? If I'm a Wisconsin Badger fan, right? If Wisconsin's about to play a big football game or a basketball game or a swim meet, if you know me well, set an email campaign and reach out to me with a message being like, hey, Shannon, did you watch the game last night? Or hey, Shannon, I see Wisconsin's about to enter the NCAA championships. Good luck, right? That's a good way to keep a candidate warm. Spark their interest now, because again, it's all about timing. Sometimes you find the right, sometimes a candidate doesn't respond because the timing isn't right. But how are you going to continue to engage them? How are you going to spark their interest? How are you going to motivate them to be able to become interested in the future? All right, strategy 5, integrate directly with the ATS databases. Oy, this is so important. Okay, I gotta start back in the day. So applicant tracking systems were sold to us, first off, as a legal necessity and a record. But second, that we were going to have this giant treasure trove of candidates that we're going to be able to constantly source from. And I remember in the early 2010s, like 2012, 13, 14, a lot of our metrics had to be with searching our own database. And heads of TA would get on the conference circuit with me when I'm talking about my Boolean strings. They get up there and be like recruiters and sources, they just don't use our databases, and no one uses people who've already applied. And what's the point of investing in all these other tools if they're not using what we have? And we're sitting there like rolling our eyes, being like, have you ever tried to search this system? You can't. It's impossible. And by the way, these candidates, like I'm searching Joe Smith from 2002, and apparently his AOL email doesn't work anymore, right? So you have to be able to integrate from multiple options. One, save yourself time, right? Anything that happens in your sourcing top of the funnel system should happen in your ATS and vice versa. The two should be able to talk to each other. Same with your CRMs, right? All of your systems should be connected, and technology exists nowadays. The second piece is to be able to go into your database of ATS world and take all those candidates, the millions of candidates that are in there, refresh their current information, and bring that up to the giant database that you're currently sourcing in. Can you imagine using a big database of candidates, and now you have ones that have already shown interest in your organization, and you're searching one pool of all of them combined? That's amazing, right? That's going to totally save time. These are people who've already raised their hand and say, hey, I like your company, I applied. Now you can go ahead and say, hey, I know you applied 5 years ago, but I see you've been promoted. How about this new role, right? Trust me, it works. That's the beauty of modern day technology. All right, and I said about 45 minutes, and I'm approaching that time. So I'm going to speed it up shortly. I promise I'm almost done. But again, you want to make sure you gain visibility into the candidate engagement process, share the best practices, and collaborate with your team, right? This goes back to what I was saying with the hiring managers and retention. The more you can work together throughout the process, the better it will be. This is something that I'm a hiring manager, and this is something that I love most about working with our recruiting team, because I am constantly in the system. Maybe it's the old recruiter in me, but I'm constantly talking, and the recruiters are constantly pinging me, and it's definitely sped up the time that is so important nowadays. We've had to reduce our interview process to a maximum of 2 interviews and try to get an offer within a week, just because of the competition. And we're a small brand in the TA space. Not many people know of us outside of recruiting. That will change, but right now it's not like we have a large, big brand that we can get people to join my marketing team that probably haven't heard of us. So we have to move quick, and collaboration makes the hiring process so much more faster. And I know you guys have all had to look at that too and think about different ways that you can to accelerate your process. Trust me, it's collaboration within a system, right? It works beautifully. All right. So kumbaya, we all know that we need to be shifting our mindset from reactive to passive. And I want to wrap up with one of my best friends. I love his quotes. He's so funny on Twitter. Make sure you're following Levi Recruits. But Steve says, in this era of outbound recruiting combines strategy, sourcing, engagement, data, and integrations. It's the arsenal needed to accelerate the luck and the timing sourcers and recruiters need to find the right person and deliver the right message at the right time, not the same message deployed at the same platform at the same time under the same constraints as everyone else. I would read it again if I had more time, but I couldn't have summed up the message I was trying to get up today better than what Steve said. All right, so sales pitch here. Again, our platform makes you 2 times faster, brings you more leads, and of course, uncover more underrepresented talent. So I do want to open up to any questions. We have a couple minutes to take some. So let me turn it over to my friends who are helping me on the back end. Do we have any questions that we want to spotlight? Oh, Ashley, I think you're on mute.
Sorry. I'll put the one in the Q&A in the chat here, Shannon, for you.
Someone asked if there will be a demo. No, this is not that big of a sales pitch, but go to our website, hireEZ.com, click on the contact sales, and we'll get you a demo. Let's see. Yes, a lot of people are agreeing with what I've been saying. This is, yes, this has been recorded, and anyone who registered will get a copy to this. So unfortunately, if you want to listen to me speak twice, you have that opportunity. Also, I want to encourage everyone to go to our website. We have a whole content library that not only showcases future events, but if you click on blogs, we've done a really good job of breaking down the how to outbound recruit section on our website. And so you really get a step-by-step guide on how you can become better outbound recruiters. So all that content is available on our website. And I'm just couldn't be more proud of our content team, but they're talking about students of the industry to really put that stuff together and out there for you. Excellent. Well, I think this is time. I'm not seeing a lot of questions coming through. I want to thank you all for... Oh, actually, what? I'm sorry, what was that?
There's a couple that just came through in the chat.
Oh, okay. See, I keep clicking on Q&A, but here are the chats. Okay. Let's see. Can you provide that last quote again to us? Oh, Kit, I love you. I wish I can send you a gift for saying that. Yes. Okay. So here's that quote I absolutely love. And to me, this sums up not only the whole webinar, but also the outbound recruiting mindset, right? This era of outbound recruiting combines strategy, sourcing, engagement, data, and integrations. It's the arsenal needed to accelerate the luck and the timing sourcers and recruiters need to find the right person and deliver the right message at the right time. Not the same message deployed on the same platform at the same time under the same constraints as everyone else. I'll leave that up there. All right, you commented about the makeup of interview teams. I think you said hiring teams more diverse. Do you have a result and how that impacts actual hires? So it wasn't the interview teams I was saying. I was saying that the actual final slate of candidates. So what I said was when there are 4 final candidates and one of them is a female or an underrepresented minority, that they have a 0% chance of actually getting the job. As in your slate needs to be at least 50% diverse or higher than 25% for that underrepresented talent to be successful. So the token positions, that doesn't work, right? And candidates are starting to see right through that. So you really have to make sure your slate is super diverse if you're trying to solve for hiring more underrepresented talent into your organization. I don't have any statistics that show the diverse slate of interviewers. I'd actually like to see that. So perhaps we can get some of our friends at some of these interview platforms, to conduct some of that research. I'd be curious to know as well. Personally, I would like to see, if I'm a female interviewing for a company, I would like to interview with with a female. That's just because that's my comfort zone. That could be just me. People have different tastes and preferences. But my quote to explain that was in the final slate of candidates, it has to be more than 25% representation. Is texting candidates from the platform still on the roadmap? Oh, yes, it is on the roadmap. So it's in the distant roadmap, as in we're coming out with some really cool releases in April. It won't be texting, but we're working on it. And the reason is we want to make sure it's absolutely perfect before we release it. But to me, texting is a huge part of the outbound recruiter strategy. So that will be something that will be coming out. We just need a little bit more time to perfect it. So I know our product team is actively working on it, and it's something that we've been, internally being like, hey, can we get this? So it is coming. Excellent. Oh, that looks like all the questions. Good questions today, guys. Thank you so much. So again, this will be recorded and available and released to everyone who registered, whether you were here or not. My email is shannonpritchett@hireEZ.com. Please feel free to reach out to me and my team if you have any questions, but I've really enjoyed my time with everyone today. And I look forward to seeing more outbound recruiting skill sets pop up. Have a good one.